Welcome to Martechify, a community of marketing professionals interested in digital marketing, MarTech, and AI. I am your host today, Ekaterina Konovalova, and I'm very excited to welcome to this conversation AJ Navarro. He's the marketing operations manager at Sprout Social, a social media management platform, and he's an Adobe Champion, certified in Marketo and Sixth Sense. And today we'll talk about what he's doing at Sprout Social, what campaigns or workflows and APIs he's building, and we will talk about the state of marketing operations, marketing automations. AJ, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Excited to really be here. Like I said, my name is AJ Navarro. I'm based out in San Antonio, Texas. So for those of you listening, if you ever find yourself in the Texas area, I would love to connect. I'm a big mops nerd, and so community is a big thing for me. But yeah, excited to be here.
A true Texas hospitality. Look at that, inviting people right away. I love it. As usual, my first question is, how did you get started in marketing? What inspired you to pursue your career?
Yeah, I'm sure like everybody in marketing operations, it kind of came out of nowhere. I knew I wanted to be in marketing. At the time, I had just left. I was working at Enterprise Rent a Car as like a manager, and long days, long hours, type of typical thing coming out of college. And I was looking around. I knew I wanted to get into marketing. I threw my hat in for a few roles, wasn't landing them. And then all of a sudden, a Marketo administrator job came my way, and I got hit up through a recruiter. And I had very little dabbled a little bit in HubSpot, dabbled a little bit in Marketo, like very, very light kind of mom and pop stuff, like when I was in college. And that just really came from my ability to learn softwares relatively quickly. A fun fact, in college, I kind of was in the music recording business. So I ran a studio. So you had to learn some crazy software then. And then that evolved to like helping artists promote and do this marketing stuff. So all of the ability to learn a software is what kind of came back at full circle. And so I interviewed for this role, and I was like, I think I did really great in the interview. I don't know that I'll get it, because I was for sure going to get beat out. And I ended up getting the job. And I was like, okay, great. And so I remember logging in to Marketo for like, not for the first time, but like really getting in there, really owning it. Normally you start off like as an associate. I was an admin right away. And I immediately fell in love with it. I, was understanding like, oh wow, this is really cool. Okay, this is an email campaign. And I was having some people, we had an agency at that time that kind of got me up to speed. And then ironically, COVID kind of came around. I unfortunately was laid off. But again, the power of community, uh, within like a week or so, without even leaving, my house, because you couldn't because of COVID, uh, I picked up a contracting job. Then that led to being in the agency life. And that was what I would say is like the first start as the Marketo admin was kind of like the base, but then where I really got to get my feet wet was becoming a consultant. And I did that for about 3 years. And that just, it taught me so much. I mean, I was dealing with all different types of systems, all different types of clients, and all those things. And so that's really how I got my start into it. And I think that's also been a very big strength that served me well um, with the consultancy. It was just, I think a strong power is even if you don't know something, raise your hand and say like, hey, I could figure it out. And that seemed to have served me well during my career. And then now I'm at Sprout and I'm doing a lot of those things, but Sprout essentially is the one client, so to speak. And I'm doing a lot of those cool things being in-house now. And yeah, it's just been fun. It feels so fast. I think I started in 2019, 2020 when COVID happened. And now we're in 2026. And so I always like to joke and say, on paper, I have, maybe 6, 7 years of experience, right? But the learning that I picked up along the way, I feel like I can easily hang with those who are 15 years plus.
Yes, and you're so active in the community. So definitely a lot of people know you in Texas. Let's talk
Yeah, yeah.
about, maybe explain more what Sprout Social is. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the platform, but maybe some cool features. So give us a quick overview of your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's my best pitch on it. So Sprout Social is the enterprise level social media management tool. And I like to stress that enterprise level, and this is why. It's a very robust, really awesome tool set when it comes to managing social media, but it does more than just that. There's customer advocacy built in, there's social intelligence built in, a bunch of different types of insights, now AI analytics and all those things built in. And so because of that, since it's just such a robust tool, it's really made for while you can focus on SMB, mid-market, things like that, where its bread and butter is these enterprise level type of companies. So think of like I don't know, like your NBA or anything like that, just organizations that have multiple layers of different types of media or social media across all different types of social media channels, but also maybe wanting to deal with customer support within the platform. And the differentiation is that, your Hootsuites or whatever are made for like more of the smaller. If you were putting like a Marketo terms, Marketo is like kind of the industry standard when it comes to marketing operations, or like HubSpot versus like a smaller type thing. So yeah, so we're in that enterprise kind of tier.
Yes, yes. And now let's dive into your actual work at Sprout Social. Can you lift the curtain a little bit for us and talk
Yeah.
about some cool campaigns and workflows that you've built?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the work is actually it's really fun being here in-house because one, I'm really blessed to have such a really awesome team. Even as an Adobe Champion or being bred into Marketo, I always like to joke and say I am a backup to the backup. And what I mean by that is that our team is very smart, very sophisticated, and can handle everything pretty much autonomously on their own. And so that allows us to really not only do some really awesome work, but be creative when we do it. So some of the things that I've dived into is a lot more of the technical challenges that we're starting to run into in a good way. Like Sprout has a ton of successful webinars that have a high amount of volume that we're talking about, like maybe 5,000 registrants and 300 to 400 plus demo requests that come through those things. And so one of the things I've really started to dive into is API calls and some agentic workflows. One of the best things, so kind of giving you a peek behind the curtain, is an AI call. So when we were first integrating with our webinar platform, the native sync, while it's still really good, was about 5 to 15 minutes back and forth, which again, with all the other stuff that we have going on in our systems, that takes a while for the data to come in. We want the email right away. We don't want people to fill out the form multiple times and the data get changed and things like that. So one of the cool things I did was develop a webhook that we use a Marketo form that when someone fills out that information, it fires off the webhook. It goes to the webinar platform, grabs the information, and we pull that into the program. And then from there, what we do is so we don't lose history. We stamp a lot of that stuff on a couple of different places. The first place is some program membership fields, and that's so that way you keep the data within the program. And so when you sign up and you get the autoresponder like, hey, thanks for joining our webinar, thanks for signing up, you automatically get your unique URL and you get your unique calendar links across all the different calendar clients, which is like really cool. But what we also do is then I built a custom activity and custom object within Marketo. And the reason why we did that is because what we can then do is, if you've been a Marketo, when you have custom activities, I can go into the person's record, and this is mainly helpful for like an admin type troubleshooting. I can double click into the activities and I could see, oh, AJ registered. Okay, what was the data that came through? Similar to like when you click into a form, I can see everything, but I could see like all the information relevant to the webinar, as well as when you join the webinar, I get that information, and that's within the activity record. But then to take that one step further, we built a custom object. And what the custom object then allows me to do is I get all the great webinar information, but now I get information such as, were you a demo request within the webinar? What were your poll responses? What questions did you ask? Did you download any handouts within the webinar that we provided within the iframe? What was the engagement rate? What time did you enter? How long did you stay? Based off of your engagement, how active were you with the chat, like, and all those different things. And what that then allows us to do is work with our teams to say, oh, well, hey, this type of industry stayed this percentage along with the way. They download this handout. Maybe we could throw this into a nurture, right? It's all about getting these insights. So that's been really, really cool that we've been able to do. And again, that's like multi-layering, and it all starts with the webhook information, custom activities, and then layering into the custom object.
Yes, I
Uh,
love it. And Adobe just had the summit recently, and they rolled out a lot of features. Some of them are still in the works. Were you able to implement any of the latest AI tools that they just rolled out? There are also really cool features that are related to lead management and troubleshooting the leads. So, have you been able to take any of the innovations and apply them at your work?
yes and no. And the reason why I say no is because they're not full production yet. But one of the many perks of being an Adobe Champion, and again, if you're listening, please apply to the Champion program. It's a great resource. But one of the many benefits is that we get hands-on with the betas and the alphas pretty quickly. So even leading up to Summit, a lot of us were in there already really stress testing these things. And so right now, one of the many benefits, again, back to the Sprout team, is we're pretty open to those types of things. And, when I brought the information back to my team, it's like, hey, great, run along, stress test everything. Here's some use cases we really want to look into, and let us know, is this worth starting to bring into our sandbox, or is this worth starting to bring in production when we're ready? So me personally, some of the AI agents that I'm really excited for are that list management one. I mean, that one's just a game changer, especially for us at Sprout. We do a ton of events. Data's not always perfect, right? Like there's humans always involved, which is completely okay. But it just helps ease that bandwidth, and it's just kind of a good preview. The other one that I'm really, really excited for as an admin that saves me a bunch of time is the lead investigation agent. And that one, if you're familiar with the demo, basically, if I want to look up someone and say, hey, why didn't AJ MQL? The agent will then run, analyze all the activity record, analyze the record itself, and say, oh, AJ didn't qualify for this MQL campaign because his status is recycled, which omits him for da 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 da. That alone normally takes an admin, if you're really good, I want to be generous and say an hour to two, but on average, it's probably 2 to 4, because you're having to you're looking at a few different places. You're looking at the program, like, did I screw something up? Or you're looking at the person's record and you're having to comb through the activity to see all the information. In this case, I could pull up everything, and it just gives me a great starting point that I can then go dissect and be like, oh, okay, let me go make sure that's right. Because we don't always want to blindly trust just AI when it's telling us, but it gives us just a great baseline where we get time back into our day. So those are, there's some other ones, but those are like the two that I'm really, really excited for, and we'll be stress testing and am
Yes.
stress testing. Yes.
Yes. So let's look into the rest of 2026 and beyond. What
Yeah.
else do you see? I loved how you threw in a few statistics and the hours to kind of help us gauge how much time it takes for an admin to
Mhm.
do these jobs, and AI tools are saving this much time. And you also mentioned a very important point that we still need to QC. A human needs to double check, and you actually need to be so aware of the work to know where to look for errors and mistakes. I've had experts on the call where they'll say, I used AI to analyze Excel and it just pulled half of the data. So it looks
Mhm.
legit, but then if you understand what should be in the data and begin noticing some inconsistencies, you can go back and ask. In my own content marketing, I've seen AI changing the book title. So it just
Yeah.
decides that the book should be named something else. So let's go back to your field of work. And can you provide additional examples of what you're seeing will be implemented later this year and more
Yeah.
widely adopted, because you have this front seat view in beta testing and other people will only get it a few months later?
Yes, absolutely. I love this question. I'm going to answer it a bit opposite. And this is why, because I don't think this is going to be widely adopted, but it needs to be because of everything that you just said on the hallucination standpoint and the changing. I think what not enough people are talking about is what we're starting to see the industry shift towards these individual agents, or just agents in general. every organization, as the industry shifts, is going to suffer from the two kind of same problems, which is governance and guardrails. And not enough people, we're talking about it, but we're not really talking about it, especially, I care about my marketing operations community. And this is where I don't look at this as like, oh, our jobs are getting replaced, but our roles and what we do will fundamentally shift. And this is why I think my hot tip for this call, and I preach this like of what needs to be widely adopted is us as marketing operations practitioners need to get very good, if not almost perfect, but very good at understanding, writing, and reading Markdown files or MD files. Not all agents are on this right now, but you're starting to see this more in Claude co-working on those things. But the reason why this is so important on any of the agent betas that you saw from Adobe, there's a section in Marketo where it's essentially a Markdown file where you set up your governance, where instead of having to prompt the agent every single time of, oh, here's how I want to name my program, here's what I want to do, you build that into the Markdown file, and it's kind of your governance structure. So you're not asking it every time. Well, for MOPS, as these agents start to shift and start to iterate and start to grow and become more widely adopted, when things tend to go wrong, which they will, right? We're in technology and agents aren't perfect. AI hallucinates, and we know that. The human in the loop part of our roles will now be, instead of me troubleshooting an activity record on a person, one of the first places I need to be checking is going into that MD file and looking, did I set this up? Because it's going to be very important to be able to tell the AI agent, if you do not have the answer, do not provide the answer, right? It needs to be clear as that. And so that's like my pitch and what needs to be wildly adopted. Something that fits to my team that we're going to start working on. Is to become really, really good on the MD file structure, because those can be anywhere from 1 page to 20 pages. They can be very complex. They can be very simple, but the best way I could put it is, if you're an organization that has your entire wiki documentation of like, oh, this is our life cycle, this is our lead score, take all of that, and that's your new area to train this agents and things off of. And it's just going to be very important for the governance, guardrails, and compliance.
Absolutely. Such a good point. I have a question. If you've seen any funny, almost comical experiences with AI, for example, if you have any customer support requests, some customers now employ their own agents. And the new era of challenges that we're entering in customer care is the company has a bot and AI agents, and the customer has their own AI agent, and they talk to each other. So there's no human. And I've seen examples in telecom where these two escalate a very mundane, minor issue to the highest level of involvement of top level management, and it could have been resolved very quickly. So basically robots talk to each other, could not compromise, reached an impasse, had to involve top level management resolution from the organization. And when they looked into that, they're like, oh my gosh, this is the new reality. So have you seen any examples like that?
I haven't seen an example like that yet where agents are talking to agents, but I have heard like what you just said, which again, that's where I harp on the MD files, because we are in the middle of building a chatbot right now. And again, hey, if you don't get to the answer by X time, drop it. It needs to move on or do whatever, right? This isn't the perfect answer with this. I do think it helps a long way that I still think that not enough teams are doing this with agents in general, is you need to stress test and pressure test and also creatively test. And I mean by that, but like doing wacky things, even crazy things of like, I don't know, if you're using a chatbot, throw profanity in there. Like, I want to try to break the agent as much as possible to see how it responds in all those different ways. And you're not going to be perfect. I'd be lying if I'd say like, oh, it's going to fix everything. But like, I think it's in terms of just mitigation, that's probably one of the best things that you can do. I think teams kind of like stand it up. They do the general prompts of like, oh, okay, hey, I want to talk to a salesperson or I'm not available. And like, they kind of get the answers, maybe some fuckiness, but like, I want to stress test it to where, again, like specifically if I'm dealing with a chatbot, I want to start trying to ask it like, hey, what does pipeline look like right now? What is revenue? Like I'm trying to see, will it give me company insights? Will it leak information? I want to purposely test it to see that this is going to be out to the public, right? And so things like that I think are very helpful. But yeah, AI hallucination is real. It's not perfect. The more you train it, it gets slightly better. But to this day, again, my other hot take here is that I personally don't see or have seen any autonomous agent right now that runs so perfectly and you could just blindly trust it. Nor do I think I ever would want to be in that kind of position to just have it. There always to me needs to be the human in the loop, and things like that. I think we're just not there yet. Um, and you go on LinkedIn and you can look up any one of horror stories of where, oh, it deleted all my data and things like that.
Yes, for sure.
So,
So, do you have any interesting stories using Sixth Sense? How you use another well-known tool at your work?
yes. Yes, yeah. So, big fan of Sixth Sense. I've used them for some time. Again, just like any tool, it's always going to be garbage in, garbage out. So, data is always really important. With Sixth Sense, we rely heavily on the sales intelligence component. We have a ton of sellers that rely on it. So, one of the cool things that Sixth Sense offers is within the sales intelligence platform, when you click onto an account, you can see an AI generated summary of a 30-day recap that, again, this is tied to like what may be going on in your map, what may be going on in your CRM, any other outreach, and just kind of gives you a 30-day idea of what's been going on in this account. The cool thing that I think just launched this week or late last week that I'm actually diving in and really playing with is they launched a feature called Revy AI. What that allows you to do is it's basically like a GPT built into Sixth Sense. But I could say, hey, show me the top keywords that have been producing pipeline. And in the old world, or last month really, I'd have to manually pull that report, if not request that from the CSM. And now I can go in there and I could say, hey, show me the top campaigns that have led to deals and pull all this information. So that's been really cool and really helpful, especially at Sprout. This year, we've been really going after and stepping up our ABM efforts. So have been really cool. So that's kind of how we're leveraging it right now. So a lot of it is in the sales intelligence portion, which if you're a Sixth Sense user, highly recommend the sales intelligence area. It is pretty cool.
Nice, nice. As we wrap our conversation, what advice do you have for people who are entering Martech and marketing operations? Because as we speak, things are changing daily, weekly, and monthly. By the
Mhm.
time people graduate or by the time they get their first job, it's so different. As we mentioned, before it would take a while to pull the report. Now you do it with one click of a button. So, how can people keep up, even, or any other pointers to those who are entering the marketing field and want to stay on top and learn as fast as you are?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple of tips. The first one is to dive right in and find a community. One of the things and why I'm such a big fan of communities because my career honestly wouldn't be possible without it. When I first got started, whether it was the Marketo user groups or the market operations groups, just anything like that, you want to surround yourself with other individuals who are either coming into the game just like you are, or have been there, done that, or leaving the game. Like, surround yourself by people to bounce these ideas off of and to learn. That's the best thing about this. You'll never know where you're going to end up. Um, and you'll never know again where you're going to need a helping hand or give a helping hand. So community to me is probably the most important. Uh, the second thing would be to have the ability to kind of keep the mindset of a student. And what I mean by that is because things are changing so fast, the best CEOs that I've ever worked for, he had a quote in our conversation or in our mentorship talks. And that was that, we don't hire for people's skill set, meaning like I didn't hire you just because you knew Marketo, right? Like we focus on people's ability to solve problems. And so what that leads me to say is that even if you're geared in just one thing, have the ability to unlearn, relearn in your work. Um, it's just going to be impactful. There's going to, and think about like ABM, the way of doing it has changed and is always changing. MOPS is always changing. Email
Mhm.
merges are always changing. Um, and so just always have the mindset of a student, like, kind of like you're always day one, I think is the biggest thing. And again, that's where community plays an impactful role. I think my last one would be probably the most important, and this comes also most important. This comes from the consulting days is work on your soft skills. Depending on who you talk to, they say that, oh, it can't be taught, it can't be trained. I think it can be. Soft skills are just going to be crucial, I think, in any role that you have. And what soft skills essentially are is the ability to be able to communicate with stakeholders, whether it be people at your level, lower than your level, above your level, just in general, just how you conduct yourself. And you learn that a lot if you come from a consulting background, you're dealing with all these different types of clients. But I think one of the things that have really helped me was having those soft skills and just kind of like getting rid of the shyness. I mean, you don't always get rid of it, like you kind of just jump in head first. Uh, but if you do that, you'll be able to influence without even having a title. I think if you compare or if you combine, again, having a community, being nimble and being able to adapt, learn and unlearn and relearn, and then just having the soft skills, being able to translate the work that you do to the revenue generating outcome, you will do very well in your career and you'll move up rather quickly.
That's right. Very good points. Thank you so much, AJ.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.